Good morning, everybody. Greetings from London. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of Private Equity Laid Bare, authored by Ludovic Phalippou, who is an academic working in the private equity space. So let's go to it. So let's start with the author, Ludovic Phalippou. So I'm just looking at his biography, which is on the back of the book, just over here. And it describes him as one of the 40 most outstanding business school professors under 40 in the world. So no false modesty there. And he works with private equity funds, and he has been teaching MBAs and others. And he has a PhD mostly in kind of quantitative aspects, and he enjoys racing road bikes and good wines. So that's the profile of the author. So let's now look a little bit about the book and its contents, which I've read carefully. So in the introduction it says, which is worth reading here, the intention is a book to be read more like a novel than a textbook, which is interesting. I believe in making things as simple as possible and writing in an informal and entertaining way. And so let's see if the book lives up to that. So the book itself is organized into two sections. The first half is from the point of view of the GP, and the second half is from the point of view of the LP, or discusses LP-type topics. So turning to the GP one side first, it's really not about venture or growth. It's really about large leveraged buyout funds. So it's about a very specific item. And the contents, the text, it's really very much about the numbers, about using leverage and numerical calculations. So there isn't too much about other aspects of private equity. And it's very competently done. The numbers are very detailed. My only critique would be the valuation section is not very good, because it's really a rehash of a generic kind of corporate finance valuation with a little bit of leverage thrown into it, and it was not very clearly presented. I think the LP side of the book, the second half of the LP, is much better, and it does give you access to some trade secrets of LPs and some arcane aspects which could be quite useful to people. And I think the second thing I'd say about it is that the chapter where the author critiques performance returns of private equity, such as IRR and net asset value, is definitely a must-know, because it's very topical and it explains very well how private equity funds manipulate their track records. So that is very interesting. So the next question is, who could this book be of interest to? So this Private Equity Laid Bare by Ludovic Phalippou. I think, to be honest, actually, I think most mid-market GPs would have a lot of trouble reading through this book, if I have to be honest. And the only reason I am able to do so is that I teach private equity, so I feel I have to make sure I understand the books that are out there, but it's heavy going. I think the two audiences this book could appeal to is, firstly, some sort of eager beaver MBA who's very keen to get a job with a leveraged buyout fund, not with a venture fund, not with a growth fund, but with a leveraged buyout fund, who obviously wants to impress with a memorized knowledge of this book. So that's a clear audience there. And the other potential audience could be somebody in the private equity industry who may refer to this book from time to time, particularly the LP section, in order to brush up on some of the arcane back office and statistical issues you might find. So those would probably be the two readerships this book may appeal to. So finally, to summarize my view of the book, I think let's think about the pros and the cons. I think on the pro side, it's a very thorough, quantitative deep dive into leverage buyouts, and a great analysis of detailed statistics on the LP section. Secondly, it's very well researched, as you might imagine from an academic. And thirdly, it does contain some interesting trade secrets which you might not come across in other kinds of books on private equity. On the minus side, it's really just about numbers, this book. There is no kind of touching upon other aspects of private equity, the managerial and other aspects. So it's really just about the numbers. The layout of the book, for a book that is quite indigestible because of the number aspect, the layout is very poor. The formatting, the fonts, the layout is very poor, and I don't see any reason why that had to be the case. Thirdly, the author uses a kind of parable of Alice in Wonderland to create a narrative to take the reader through the book. And I think it falls a little bit flat. It comes across as a little bit forced. And the last negative of the book, it's totally focused on the US market. There's nothing about really substantial about the European markets. It's really about US buyouts. So to summarize the book, what would be my view? You know, I like to use, is it a must-have, is it a buy, or is it a don't buy? I think the title of the book, Private Equity Laid Bare, should be more like LBOs in Detail. That's probably more an accurate title. I think reading this book, it's a bit like taking a very strong medicine. It's a pretty bitter pill to swallow, but it will probably do you good if you can force it down. And I think it's probably a buy or even a must-have for eager beaver MBAs. But I think for everybody else, it's probably more of a don't buy than a buy. So that concludes my review of Private Equity Laid Bare by Phalippou. I hope you enjoyed my book review. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you've got any comments or different points of view, please make a comment on my YouTube. And please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much. Until the next review.